This episode is sponsored by National Technology Management. Visit trustntm.com for more information. I'm Kelly Siegel, and this is Harder Than Life, a podcast about self-love, self-awareness, business, and health. We tell outrageous stories and boil everything down to simple, practical advice you can start using today. Let's get living. Today's guest is Rebecca Zung, an expert on narcissism, and we are going to discuss her new book, Slay: How to Negotiate with a Narcissist Bully and Win. You should listen to her because she has real-world experience, has been on the Ed Milat podcast, has over 35 million views on YouTube, and is recognized as the top 1% of attorneys in the nation. One would think that she has an ego, but I easily approached this beautiful soul in an event and that we both attended and struck up a conversation immediately. She is kind, loving, warm, and here to share her wisdom on the Heart and Life podcast. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
I got to tell you, I now that we're recording, this book was fabulous. I read it in 2 days digitally, and I am a regular book reader, and I had it electronically, and I read it, and I was cutting and pasting it. I couldn't put it down. So I know that we're here to talk all things book. I cannot wait to get a hard copy so I can read it again. I am telling you, everybody needs to go out and read this book. I was floored by what the definition of a narcissist is. So I thought I knew what it is. I'm sure you run into this all the time. And the stories that you tell. Oh, run out and get this book as soon as it's available, everybody. It is that good. And everybody knows I read a ton. I read a book a week. Read this in 2 days electronically. So we're going to get right into it. I noticed something and I want to ask you a question. The title actually reads Slay the Bully in big white print, and small black is the rest of the title. Is it intended to honor your upbringing as being bullied? It says slay. Did you notice that? Slay the bully?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually originally come up with the title. I had the publisher had helped me come up with the title, but I liked it because I had been bullied as a kid, and I did feel like I've come full circle with it. And if you noticed, I kind of I started obviously with the fact that I had been bullied as a kid, and and then at the end I ended up acknowledging the bullies, and I kind of ended up acknowledging them as lessons in my life. And I do feel like it's all been a confluence of events. When I look at the whole thing, I feel like everything in my life has led up to this moment. I feel, and I believe that it's that way for everybody's life. Everything is a lesson, and everything does lead from one thing to the next. And I think that I'm meant to do this because I was bullied as a kid. I think narcissists are bullies. So I when they approached me and came up with that name, I I really actually thought it was perfect because of that.
It totally comes away that you have overcome. You took away all the bully's powers. So you definitely slayed the bully, and it was evident in the reading of the book. So you were married at 19 for the first time, divorced, and went back to law school, had 3 kids. Just in case anybody doesn't know your backstory, which I went back and listened to every podcast I could find. I read the book. I did all I know all about you, but some of my listeners might not. So could you just give us a 2-second, what happened why are you here? Why does your story matter?
Yeah, so I am half Chinese and half German. So I always joke that I have no fun genes whatsoever.
My producer's laughing in the background. That's terrible, but funny.
Yeah. So I graduated second in my class from high school, because that was, if your dad is Chinese, that's what you do. And I ended up, my version of rebelling was to get married at 19, drop out of college. And I had 3 kids by the time I was 22 years old. And then I ended up going, this is not for me. And I thought I gotta figure out how I'm going to get my life back on track. And I had become a teacher. So I was teaching inner city elementary school in Fort Lauderdale, which is not something I normally talk about, actually. But I was teaching elementary school in inner city Fort Lauderdale. And this is actually not a story I normally tell, but
Thank you.
I, yeah, but I was standing at recess with this other teacher, and I was like 26 years old, and I had these little kids, but they were like, I don't know, 6, 7, little kids, but I was only 26 years old, but I had these 3 little kids. And I was, getting a divorce at that point, and I had this was my life. And I remember this other teacher and I were talking about this other teacher who was getting a promotion and going to work at the district office, and like that was like, ooh, the thing. And she said, "Oh, he got out, but not you and me. We're stuck here." And I remember thinking, I said to her, thinking to myself, saying to her, but I didn't say this out loud. Maybe you are, but I'm out of here. And I just, in that moment, thought, I, I got to get out of this place. And I was in the process of getting a divorce. And there I was with these 3 little kids, and I'm teaching inner city school. And I and that day, I'm pretty sure that was when I looked into University of Miami's night program at law school, and I applied for law school at night. And that's when I went back to law school at night, and I graduated from law school at night. I was like only 30 years old, but I felt like I was so old at that point because I had these kids that were like 8, 9, and 10. And I had met my husband in law school,
Your second husband.
and my second husband, who I'm married to now.
Awesome.
And yeah, and I mean, we've been together for like 25 years already at this point, and we have a 21-year-old daughter. But it's it's just kind of crazy because I've lived this whole second life with him, and I've got these kids that are grown, and but yet, you know, I had lived that whole life already in my 20s at that point, and I had to stay up till 2 in the morning and study and take care of my kids, and it was a crazy life at
So
that point.
you're living the American dream, and you took a swing at the first time, you missed, and then you got right back up, and I applaud you for that. But let's jump right into at one point you say there's a triad of a narcissist, and let me say exactly how it has this: a dark triad of narcissism. The first part of the triad is the narcissist dependency on feeling special and being the only one who gets to feel special. The second part is the lack of remorse for how they treat others. And the third part is a penchant for manipulation. And you write quite the little fun combo. Define narcissism for the listeners, please.
Yeah, and boy, he really did read the book. I'm so excited.
Oh, that's
Hardly
the tip
anybody
of the iceberg.
Yeah, that's so good. I like to define it in terms of like a layperson definition to make it easy for people to understand. I think it's definitely a spectrum. We all have our own insecurities, right? But if you go all the way down to the end of the spectrum, which is narcissistic personality disorder, and in the book, I do talk about the 9 criteria that the the DSM-5 requires that mental health professionals look at, but which are the grandiosity and the shamelessness and all of those things. But I think it's most important that people understand it's a person who feels totally and completely empty inside, a person who feels like they have no feeling of value internally, none. And so they have to get all of their value from external sources. And it's this complete black hole that will never be filled. And so they suck all of their value from the external. And so it's people or things or trappings like prestige, money, friends, celebrity, or it's degrading people, manipulating people, treating people poorly. It's passive aggression. It's pushing other people down to make themselves feel good. And it can never be filled ever. It's the deepest pain and shame that you can imagine, and that's why they can't feel or see anything about you. So, it's scarcity to the utmost extreme, and it can never be healed. So, it's this constant cycle. And that's why you are left feeling totally and utterly depleted, and yet they're still starving.
You wrote in there, and another, I'm going to just quote this: narcissists really are toddlers stuck in adult bodies. But here's the thing: living day to day is always all about survival for them. That made me actually feel sad for them. It really did, because we throw around the term narcissism so much. That's why today we're going to deep dive, and you got to go buy her book, because the 9 traits that she went over, I read it twice. I couldn't figure out, it was so long that I couldn't figure out how to get it in the show. But if we cover too much of the book in this, go buy the book just for that chapter. Those 9 traits and how you break it down. You articulated it so easily digestible. A neophyte like me understood every word that you wrote. So again, I still have compassion for people. It's probably I'm an empath, so it's probably why I'm going to deep dive into some of my stories about narcissism. But what are the 3 types of narcissists? The covert, grandiose, and malignant. And what's the difference between the 3?
Yeah. And I will absolutely get into that. The one thing I want to say before I get into that is I am very much an empath too.
Mm.
And I just had this whole conversation with my therapist, by the way. And so I,
I love you, by
and
the way. Just so you know, I love
yeah.
you. You're so real and so personable. I walked up and you're just genuine and authentic, and it just, your heart is as big as you are.
Oh, thank you. And you have to say, I'm going to give this person compassion, but over there, over
At
there.
arm's length. I love you from over here.
Over there, and that was what my therapist was like, how do I feel? What do I need? How do I feel? What do I need? Because you cannot give so much of yourself to this person. Otherwise you give too much of of yourself to this person, right?
Wait,
So because they will just take, and you you have to see and stop with the boundaries, right? And so they're not going to get healed, they're not going to get better. You've got to like not allow yourself to fall into that trap over and over again.
I found
So
that very matter of fact that you didn't deviate from that one time in the book where it was like, they will not heal. And there wasn't any point where you said, well, maybe this and no, you never even gave an opening. And I love that you took that stance, because most people won't draw a line in the sand and say, this is where it is about anything. And you left no doubt about it. They will not heal. Do not expect them to get better.
no, I mean, and I've even talked to psychologists who've tried psychedelics and all sorts of other things. I mean, and so you just can't allow yourself that opening of, well, maybe I can help, because I've been there. I'm that girl. I'm the one who is like given myself. I'll help. I'll be the one, because that's me. I'm the girl who does that,
Is
you
that what
know?
happened in the first? And I know this is the father of your children, but was your first husband a
No,
narcissist?
No,
How
no,
did you
no.
get in? Oh, it was the business part. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot. It was the
Yeah,
business
yeah.
partner that
Yeah, no,
they had.
no. Yeah, but I've done that in many other situations too, you know? I get there. I'm the one who's always like the giving, giving, giving person. And, it allows me to I have a lot of great friends. I have a lot of friends because of that, which are wonderful friendships. But I also, and it makes I'm a very, very good lawyer because of it, because I'll advocate for people to the nth degree, you know, but it doesn't make for you end up narcissists will take full on advantage of you too because of that,
We're
you
going to
know.
deep. We're going to deep dive into that
So
right now. It's chapter 3
yeah.
with, and I know that you changed the names, but Peter with his mother and his wife. It hit home. That exact scenario happened to me, and I wrote a book about it. It was unbelievable. I was reading it. I'm like, oh my god, oh my god. So you want to spend a
Peter
minute
is
about?
actually Paul Landy, which he doesn't even care if I use his name.
Oh,
But they made me change his name in the book. But Paul's episode. I have his YouTube interview is actually on my YouTube. So if people want to watch the YouTube interview, it's on my YouTube. I just released it a couple weeks ago, and there's actually an Instagram post where I just did a little Instagram post where he actually was like hugging me. I did like a little reel, and he was like, "She's literally my favorite person on the planet." So that's like from like 2 weeks ago. You can check
so
it
give a
out, but
quick overview of that because I mean, it's bananas what his mom did to him.
his mom. And uh, I just love Paul so much. I mean, it's Peter in the book because the publishers made me change all the
Yep.
names. So, but is you're dealing with my book it's Postal Press, but it's distributed by Simon and Schuster. So I'm dealing with big time publishers here. So they, you know, but this was one of those cases that just I ate, breathed, slept for 4 years. I mean, oh my gosh, this case was so much of a part of my life, and I was so happy because of the outcome. I mean, it was really such a powerful this could be a Netflix series. Really people need to go watch the YouTube and or listen. It's a podcast as well. But anyway, what happened was he has a mother who is a complete narcissist. And then he was married and has 2 sons. And his mother basically and his mother's married to a surgeon. His mother was controlling the family through finances. But then he is independently financially, fine. So what happened was he was going through divorce with his wife. And during the divorce, the mother aligns with the wife. And so the wife moves in with the mother. And the mother starts his own mother. Let's not say the mother in law, his own mother. The wife moves in with his own mother. His own mother starts paying for his soon to be ex wife's attorney's fees against him. Against him. And I'm like, what's wrong with this dude? Because I'm representing him. So I'm thinking, what is wrong with this dude? Like, what am I not seeing over here? So at one point, because he partially owned, he owned several restaurants, but one of the restaurants he partially owned with a cousin who was a great guy. And so at one point, I even brought his cousin in alone, and I'm like, "Come on, give me the straight stuff. Like, give me the straight dope. Like, what's wrong with my client? Like, come on, I need to know." Like, he's like, "Nothing. Like, she's crazy. The mother's crazy." And I'm like, "Okay." And so Anyway, it was insane what this mother and this wife was doing to this guy. They concocted all these stories about him, that he was, an abuser, that he was an abuser of his wife, that he was an abuser of his children, even though they both admitted that during the marriage that he was against any kind of corporal punishment. They said that he was abusing the kids when he had them, that he violated the domestic violence injunction that they got against him. They even got a private investigator to sleep with the wife, and then actually got him to say that he violated the injunction by saying that he was near the house, but we didn't know that she was sleeping with the dude. So all of a sudden, they're saying that he violated the injunction by saying he was near the house. And he's like, what the hell are you talking about? I wasn't near the house. But no, now he's like being arrested for being near the house, and he's in jail. And it was like, oh my God, this crazy stuff was happening. And then we found out that he was like, the mother was paying the prosecutor. I mean, it was insane
This
stuff.
wasn't the one where she showed up at the house too, and
Oh yes,
and
showed up at the house.
So at the end, he was videotaping her, and she starts beating him.
Yes. So the night before the domestic violence hearing, she shows up at the house. Lets herself into his house, and because she had left the marital home, so he's at home. She lets herself in, and he's like, hey, what the hell are you doing here? And she's like, I need medicine for the kid. And he's like, now remember, she's staying with the parents. The father is a surgeon. So like, why does she need to come back to the house to get medicine for the kid?
To start shit.
Yeah. So she shows up at the house, picks up a knife, and he's like, starts videoing, like, because he's worried. So she starts taking stuff from his closet, starts throwing it on the floor, and he's videoing. And then the next thing you know, she starts attacking him, and he's on the video going, I'm being attacked. I'm being attacked. And she yells, yes, you're being attacked. You're being attacked. She yells that in the video. And so the next thing you know, he calls the cops. She gets arrested. She goes to jail. But then 2 weeks later, files for a domestic violence injunction and gets it. So, I mean, it was crazy, all of the things that happened in this
and
thing.
It's 4 years. So this is what happens when you get involved in a narcissist. 4 years, turns your family against. Does he still talk to his mother, or is that?
Oh, no.
Good for him.
It was so crazy because he would get these voicemails from her saying, I'm going to try to have your girlfriend deported and all this other stuff. Cause he was dating this girl from the Czech Republic or whatever. And then she would leave these voicemails saying, love you, mom. And then
oh my God, dude, my producers are falling on the floor over there. It's like, you're making this up. So listen, by the way, this is what's in the book, this whole story. So if you didn't want to this is real life things. So what do they say? Smart people learn from their mistakes.
We won everything. We won.
Yes,
we won
I know.
everything.
You let the cat out of the bag. Of course you won, Rebecca. You're a badass.
Yeah.
But you used the slay method on it. I swear to you.
Slay method. He got full custody. And the judge actually in the order said, and I quoted, I don't know if you've got the quote right there. I can pull it up over here, but what the judge said in the order, basically, like that we find that the mother interfered. The mother wasn't allowed to see the kids for like a year.
That's insanity. Yeah. Anyway, the moral of the story is this is what happens when you get involved in these type of people. So That's just in chapter 3, guys. We've only made it to chapter 3. So this is so good. And they said, why, or smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. You don't want to deal with, think of the money that was wasted and the brain cells that were wasted on that 4 years. I swear, smack dab in the middle of reading this, I'm believing I have had several narcissists in my life at one time or another. Because being an empath and successful, besides being an empath and successful, what could I be doing to attract them into my life?
Mm. Well, you need to know the signs. You need to know the signs. And that is, I mean, to attract them into your life, I mean, the main thing is that when you see what is happening, which is that they look for people who have vulnerabilities. And this is what I talk about. When you stand in authentic power, when you know who you are, when you are a person who is fully aligned with source and fully aligned with you know strength, they don't come near you. They look for people who have vulnerabilities where they can kind of prey on you know I can help you with that. I can be, this, that, or the other thing. Like because they are looking for openings. Oh, you look like you're alone here at this party, or you look like I can help you with that, or I can bring you these contacts into this business, or I can um save you from this, or like they start off with I can you know be your soulmate. I can be the most charming, charismatic. They're very good at mirror neurons. Everything that you want, they will align themselves to be very good at reading that. And so by you standing in your power and authentically knowing who you are, you will be repelling them. That's their kryptonite.
What
Does
you're
that make
really
sense?
saying is, what you're really saying is love yourself so you don't need anything from anybody else. And I love that. And I want to give you more credit because you have so many key phrases for disarming narcissists. There's resources for vetting attorneys. There's all kinds of things. It's on slaythebully.com/resources. So go check that out. It'll be in the show notes. slaythebully.com/resources. And there's all kinds of how to disarm. There's the slay method. There's how to vet attorneys. She provides all kinds of, are the definitions of of gaslighting and love bombing and all that in there, or is they just in the book? Because that's what you were just explaining.
That's all in the book. Yes. I mean, obviously I want people to buy the book,
Yeah.
and all of the resources are really more meant to kind of help people as they're kind of going through the book, because obviously I want people to come buy the book,
Yeah, sorry to
so
cover so much of it, but it's so good.
yeah,
It spoke to
no,
me so
I,
well.
I'm so glad that you're doing this. I think it's fantastic.
You gave some, so I usually ask a lot of questions about the author, but this is just, everybody's encountered narcissism. Everybody thinks that they know what love bombing is, what gaslighting is, what every little phrase it is with dating, and it's just thrown around so much that this is creating awareness. You said something about 15% of people have this. I find that to be low.
Well, I mean, and that statistic is actually inclusive. It's really more that includes people who just don't have empathy. So it's like, I think it's more like 7% of people are narcissistic, and this is narcissistic personality disorder. And then if you include other disorders that don't have empathy, such as antisocial personality disorder, bipolar disorder, and other disorders that lack empathy, then it's up to 15%. But that's actual personality disorders. So as far as people who are narcissistic or have traits or tendencies, remember it's a spectrum. So if you are kind of close to the end of that spectrum there, it's probably probably a lot more than that. I mean, because these are not people that go let me get tested in an office, or let's go have a conversation about me. They're not self-aware people who want to go have conversations in the therapist's office. It's all the empaths that go flooding the therapist's office as a result of the trauma, and chaos that they cause. Right?
So you had an excellent quote, and I'm going to literally read it word for word because everybody needs to hear this. This is, I quote, "Fear, you and I are going on a ride together. I would like for you to not come along, but I realize that's not possible. I realize you're coming, so I guess you can come. But you have to sit in the back seat. You definitely do not get to pick the music. You definitely do not get to talk. And most importantly, you do not get to touch the steering wheel." Beautiful. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I constantly am stressing self-love and that she can get everything she needs internally and external validation. I read that to her, and it's tough to be my kid because I'm fearless, as you know, you've met me. But I want everybody to go and read the book just for that quote. Could you tell us how you came up with that?
Yes. So I had read a book by Elizabeth Gilbert who talked about her process for dealing with when she approaches new projects. And it was kind of a modification of her, how she dealt with, starting new things or something. And she talked about how she was like, I would like to just eradicate it completely. And then I also had read, um, it was The Untethered Soul.
So good.
And yes, and it was sort of like I took both of those books and kind of put them together and came up with this thing myself and thought, okay, this is going to be my process because I'm not getting rid of fear completely. I want to get rid of it completely, but it's just not going to go away completely. So I'm coming up with this sort of hybrid of, fear and I are going to have a conversation when I am feeling it because it's not going away completely, but we're going to just like have a little conversation. And this is how it's going to go. You don't get to drive. You get to sit in the back. And you get to shut up. This is where you get to do it. You just sit in the back. You don't get to touch the radio. You don't get to steer. This is how it's going. So
It's just fire, and having a daughter. It brings me to other questions that I didn't even write. If you did male and female, where does it are there more male narcissists than there are female, or is it equal?
I think that there's probably more male grandiose narcissists because, just as if you look at how society allows for, males to be a little bit more boastful, a little bit more bragging about their accomplishments. I think that as far as females go, I mean, I think there's probably a lot of male covert narcissists too. But I think females, there's probably a lot of female covert narcissists as well. I mean, where they're more passive aggressive, they act more like the victim, they use guilt.
Wait,
You,
let's stop right there, because you know what? I just realized that we got off on a tangent talking, and we never answered that question of the three
we
types of
didn't.
narcissists: covert, grandiose, and malignant. Would you just spend a minute to tell us about those? Because I had no idea I thought it was just one type.
I didn't know anything about it either. And
Oh, wait, hold
I
on a
mean,
second. I got a quote for that. Where is it? I don't know shit about fuck about narcissists. Where'd it go? Didn't know shit about fuck when it came to narcissism. That's a Rebecca Zungism.
It was Ruth Ozark. From anybody who ever watched the Ozark, it was no Ruth Langmore. Sorry, Ruth Langmore. It was. I was quoting her.
I'm so sorry I'm all over the board because I couldn't. It's just this needs to be made aware of because it's a problem. It is an issue, and everybody gets thrown around as he's a narcissist or he has narcissistic traits or tendencies. And I heard I think it was Ed Milet said at one time, like, alpha males, successful alpha males have a little bit of narcissism in them. I
Yeah.
try to separate my ego, but I still feel myself sometimes having narcissistic traits. Do I think I'm a narcissist?
I think
No.
we all do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I think we all do, and I think it's just a matter of being self-aware. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But do you have empathy? That's the key, right? And
I
and
just
are you
told you I had empathy
self-aware?
for the narcissist that feel nothing inside. I mean, that
Right.
tells
I
you right there.
mean, and are you self-aware? But I think that so the types are, and I certainly didn't know anything about this either at all. But I mean, I thought a narcissist before all this began was more of an forgive me for I'm not trying to be political at all, but I'm just going to use this to give people more of a visual. Was more of a Donald Trump type, the kind that comes in, tells everybody how great they are, more of a fill the room, yeah, yeah, I want the best table, like that kind of a personality type. That's what I thought a narcissist was in my mind at the time. And so when a person pointed out to me that the person that I had been dealing with, and also a family member, was a covert narcissist, I actually, they said covert passive aggressive narcissist. I thought, I what is that? I don't know what that, like, what is that? That sounds like, an alien of some sort. Like, that didn't sound like anything to me, you know? So I thought, no, that's not it, no. And I thought, I think the person is just really insecure, but not a narcissist. And but then I started learning about it, reading about it, and I thought, "Oh my god, that's exactly what this person is." And then I started reading a whole lot more, and I was just blown away. So a covert narcissist, and all types of narcissists are the same, like what I described at the beginning, but it's just how they manifest themselves. And so a covert narcissist is one that's much more passive aggressive. They show up more humble, more everybody loves them. They could be humanitarians, they could be preachers, they could be doctors, lawyers, all of the things. But underneath, right underneath that veneer, is a person who's extremely jealous, rageful, prideful, envious, and um, so they're extremely passive aggressive, and they do little things. They just say little things. It's absolutely, I'll do that for you, and then they just don't do it, or they inadvertently leave you off an email chain. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Oh, I still don't know. I don't know how that happened, and or they smear people in, and they couch it in care, like, oh, I'm just so concerned about Susie's drinking. I just worried for her, and like things like that. And it is always sort of this plausible deniability. I call it clean hands, because they're very good at couching it in a way that, it probably won't come back to them. And to me, covert narcissists are the worst ones because they stay under the radar, but it's death by a thousand cuts,
But they're the
because you
worst ones because they're playing the victim the most too.
play the victim. They play the victim, and so people feel sorry for them, and, "Oh, I can't believe that happened to you. Oh my god, they did that to you?
The
Oh my
smear
god."
campaign is what hit home for me when you said behind the scenes they started the smear campaign on you way before you even thought they did.
Way before you even realize it's happening, right? And and then that inadvertent things, those inadvertent, oh, they all of a sudden they're meeting with people and you don't even know that it's happening, or and then just like the little cuts, like my daughter dated a guy, for example, and he said something like, our kids are going to have the best of all worlds. They're going to have my brains and your work ethic, like things like that. Like
So wait, we didn't even say where can they pre-order the book right now?
they can pre-order the book, slaythebully.com. And I don't know when this is
Is that where you know it'll be out in within I'm not sure exactly, but it's probably going to be out after because it's just releasing Sunday, right? The book comes out on Sunday.
the live launch is Slay the Bully launch is Saturday, and then Sunday is the live book
Can they
signing,
get it on
and then
Amazon and whatnot?
everywhere that books are sold.
When is that going to
Yeah,
be available?
uh, October 3rd.
Okay, so it'll be after that. So you'll be able to get this book by the time this airs. It'll be sometime in October. Go out and get this book. It is, I mean, you're
Yeah.
hearing we've deep dive into it. And it's just we haven't even covered half of it, not one bit. I want to get into the SLAY method that you talked about because it's very good. SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, you and your position. But I specifically gravitated towards leverage because
Yeah.
that is how negotiations are always won. And you specifically talked about the timing and release of said leverage. Being a lawyer, tell us why that's important. And tell us about the
Well,
SLAY method.
yeah. Well, I want to talk about leverage specifically because this is where I think my method is actually revolutionary, because I talk about how a narcissist's brain functions, number one, and then how to create leverage using what I call diamond level supply and coal level supply. And so this is really SLAY stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and you. And strategy is creating your vision, having an action plan, which you have to have. You got to know where you're going in order to get there, and you have to have an action plan. And then within that, then you can create leverage. So, leverage, you have to understand how a narcissist's brain thinks. Now, with
Guys, hold
a
on right here.
narcissist,
You're going to want, this is the whole book right here. This is gold. Stop, take a picture, write down, have notes. This is gold. If you think you're involved in a narcissist, listen to what she's about to say right now. Sorry.
yeah. So, a narcissist was formed as a result of trauma. So, what happened was, and this to me was just absolutely, I was floored by this,
So was
absolutely
I.
floored by this. Yeah. So, we as human beings, our when we're presented with situations that are stressful, hormones get emitted, adrenaline, cortisol, things like that. So when that happens on a continuous basis, it can cause damage to the limbic system part of the brain in children. So that emotional center part of the brain. And so when that happens as children, it can cause something called narcissistic injury. So when they grow up, that while that prefrontal cortex part of the brain continues to develop, that limbic system part of the brain does not. And so when narcissists are presented with situations that can cause them to be triggered, and it can be anything that even though we don't think it's rational or reasonable, to them it is. So it can be an eye roll, it can be it can be a tone of voice, it can be nothing, it can be, because the server didn't come over fast enough or whatever, you know but normally it's because you didn't do something or whatever. All of a sudden they split, they go from black to white. It's done. Now that emotional center, that limbic system has taken over. And now that's what you're dealing with.
Mm.
And during that period of time, you are not dealing with rational. You are not dealing with reasonable. You're dealing with that emotional center part of their brain. And when that happens, they will do whatever they want. And they will take themselves down to take you down during that period of time. And so you cannot communicate with them like you can a rational or reasonable person. You cannot negotiate with them like you can a rational or reasonable person. So you can't sit down with them and negotiate and go, all right, so what do we want to do? We both want to save fees here. We both want to, come to a reasonable conclusion. So, like, and most people think, oh, well, narcissists just want to win. That's not true.
Mm-mm.
They want to manipulate you. They literally get a high from seeing you squirm. They love that. So you cannot rationally or think about, what can I do? What is it that they want? I'll just give it to them and I'll be done, because they enjoy the game. They enjoy the game of watching you squirm. So you have to create leverage, and that is going to be with that diamond level supply and that coal level supply that I talked about.
Guys, I know why I resonate so well with this, because this happened to me, and I wrote about it in my Heart of the Life book. And we use the sleigh method without even knowing about it, and it is, the leverage is everything. You got to know exactly when to release it, and it's got to be pow. I mean, like blammo, shock and awe, because when you watch that narcissist like realize that their diamond level supply is just depleted, the entire air in the room goes out. I was sitting in a room with with multiple lawyers. I'm not going to name names. It's in my book. And when we dropped the leverage, it was like, uh-oh. And you could just, they actually had to leave the room to regroup and knew they lost. So this method, unbeknownst to me, we used to a T. It works. Get this book. She says in her book, stop defending yourself, just the facts and the middle finger. So what she was saying in there is, once they go crazy on the crazy, do not engage. Do not even try to text. There's no rational, just stop. And I've been there and done that. This works. That's why I am so into this book. I've been there, done that. And I wish this book was released pre-pandemic, because mine happened during the pandemic. So I had to do this over Zoom, and during the pandemic, it was insane. So another quote, and I'm sorry, we have 15 minutes and I got some things I want to specifically talk to you about. So I'm zooming through a couple of things, and I apologize. You had a great quote here, was pay no mind to those who talk behind your back. It simply means you're 2 steps ahead. There's so many nuggets of brilliance in here. Talk about, I heard this on another podcast, and it's just, there's 2 things that you said that I just love. People will think what you tell them to think, and that you never leave your thoughts unsupervised. And the difference between success and not is execution. Those are 3 Rebecca-isms that I just love. Talk about them. Some of it's in the book, but some of it's not. It's just you. Share your brilliance with the Heart and Life listeners.
Well, as far as the execution goes, I mean, it's just, to me, I I find myself often frustrated with people who talk a lot about doing, but then they just don't do. And I think that, I think people can get caught up a lot in analysis paralysis. I see this a lot with, especially with entrepreneurs or with people who are, you know, they want success, or maybe they're not as successful as they want to be. And I'm not talking about people who are dealing with narcissists. I'm just talking about other people. I think that if you want to go anywhere in life, any journey just starts with the first step. So, just go, do, even if it's the smallest thing. And that's why I start with, step one, don't run, step two, make a U turn, step three, break free, because it's the integrity of the process. Even if you just chunk it down to the smallest little thing, and you hold yourself to account for a small thing, if it's working out, and you're working out, and you say, okay, today my workout is I'm going to walk 20 steps, and that's your workout, but just hold yourself to account for 20 steps, then that's what you're going to do, and execute on that. But just do and execute on that, and hold yourself to account, and and keep your word to yourself for it. I think that so many people, the reason why they're not successful is because they don't hold their word to themselves. So I'm really, really, I try to be really in integrity about everything that I do to other people. Like, if I tell you that I'm going to do something, it's done. If I tell you, Kelly Siegel, that I'm going to send an email and, to somebody on your behalf or whatever, you know that you can count on me to do that. But I also keep my words to myself. So if I say I'm going to make my bed every day, I made my bed every day, because I just think the execution is the the foundation for success. So that's my speech on execution.
The reason why I asked you that is we talked a lot about, we deep dove into narcissism, but this is a successful woman. This is a brilliant, brilliant mind that you got to come back next year when it's a bestseller all over New York, and you got everything, and we talk about you, because I didn't get to share you. And I'm going to ask you a few personal questions, but there was another thing that just Rebecca isms that is just so good. 90% of winning begins before you walk in the room. You must believe. There's so much power in your littleness that I want you to come back. Please come back next year, and we'll do this again, and we'll talk all about you personally after the book has gone, millions and millions of copies. But the nuggets here, the people will be able to go back and re-listen to this and hear again. Let me read those again. People will think what you tell them to think. She
Oh,
never
yeah.
leaves her thoughts unsupervised. We're going to have to talk about that one because that's a big one. Success, between success and not is execution. 90% of winning begins before you walk into a room. And then I wrote in here, again, those 9 criteria for a narcissist is a must read. Bananas. So go back and talk about you don't leave your thoughts unsupervised. No, this wasn't in the book. I just caught this from something else that you said. Yes, I did my research on you. I think you're an amazing person, and I can't wait to sit with you and your husband and just deep dive into you.
Oh, yeah. So, well, the thoughts unsupervised thing, I almost sort of started saying it as a joke, because, I used to, obviously, what I did for a living, was, prior to this, was I did high net worth divorce litigation. And so, there was always like this thing about supervised visitation with the kids or whatever. And, so I like used to joke about leaving my thoughts unsupervised, because I had, you know, I one of the other things I say is the first negotiation that you do sometimes is with yourself in the morning for your own self-worth. And, I think when you first open your eyes in the morning, you have to kind of navigate your thoughts, right? And so I was like, I made a joke one time about, oh, I can't leave my thoughts unsupervised, because they'll like go galloping off. And, if I leave them unsupervised, then they go into a bad neighborhood or ghetto or whatever. And so I have to make sure I immediately turn on, a good podcast or a good audiobook or something, and, harness them. And So really, that's what it's about, is just making sure that the input is good so that the output is good. And that's what it's about, because I want to keep my vibrational level high. Because if you keep your vibrational level high, I mean, we are beings of energy. We just are, and that's just basic physics. We are made of cells. We are, at the end of the day, that's what we are. And you can measure that vibrational energy. And if you want to raise your vibrational energy so that you attract better vibrational energy, you want to keep it as high as possible. So that's what I just try to do, because you'll attract better people into your life, you'll attract better things into your life. And if you want more joy, you have to keep your level as high as possible. So that's what that's about.
You're remarkable. I always say thoughts are magical lies because it's usually not. It's not the truth. You're going to see Amberly this weekend, our mutual friend Amberly Lago. She talks about attitude of gratitude over and over. She's brilliant at it. So you cannot be around her and not be positive. So
Love her.
I do the same thing in the
One of my
mornings.
BFFs.
She is fabulous. Her episode of Heart and Life's going to air here so soon, and it was just fire. So I told her I'm going to infiltrate the girl gang because I said, you guys are all being sexist. I'm in a girl's name. I'm coming to hang out. She goes, you can
Yes.
come. I got invited to the girl gang. I love it. So
Catherine Gordon is one of my BFFs too. And the three of us are like really close. And
the Gordon
do you know
family. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know of her. She's probably like, why does this guy always? I've been introduced to John several times, and he's coming on the podcast, and he's the person that got me into this stuff. I read The Energy Bus is the first one. Well, maybe Man's Search for Meaning was my first book, but The Energy Bus was the one that really got me going. And yes, that family, and then now the daughter is just they're amazing. Yeah. I couldn't even think if my daughter follows in the footsteps and does what John's does, and with Catherine and their book together. I've read every one of John's books, so we're in some good company if we're talking about them. And you're gonna have a blast this weekend, and I'm gonna send you so much love and vibration.
Be at my book signing. Yeah.
Oh, she is.
Yes, she is.
I'm headed to Naples, or I would have come and joined you guys because that sounds like some fun. We're gonna end with some personal things, just a couple little small things. What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I mean, other than my children, I would say it's this. I founded a foundation with Lindsay Snyder, who owns In and Out, which is for legal aid. And it's helping people break free from toxic relationships and find their power. It's I know that this is what I'm meant to do. I know that it is to help people break free from toxic relationships and create new beginnings and new futures. Whether that's professional or personally, and find their strength and know who they are. I know that that's what I'm meant to do.
I love it. Let's go another question. If you were offered a mulligan in life, what would you do over?
Gosh. The only thing that makes me sad is that my older children had to go through a divorce. I mean, except that I wouldn't have the life that I have today, and I wouldn't have, it's just that I, I think that everything unfolds the way that it's meant to, so
How are they doing, by the way?
They're great.
What are their ages now?
They're in their 30s. They're in their early 30s, and then um I have the 21-year-old. So, they're grown. Everybody's grown.
And they're healthy and
yeah,
functional. They're not traumatized.
No, my oldest one, he has an MBA JD, but he works with me. He's like the CFO for my company now. And
Bam!
and he lives in New York City. And he's like, yeah, he's like 30, 32. And then it's like 30, 31, 32. And then I have like the middle one. Well, actually, the middle one you can go see when you're in Naples. He's a manager of Bricktop. Um, did you ever go to Bricktop in Naples?
No, what is it? Is it a restaurant?
Yes, a huge restaurant in Waterside.
Oh, I have to check it
Um,
out.
yeah, yeah. It's like one of the most popular restaurants in in Waterside. It's huge. And he's the manager there.
Nice.
Um, yeah. And then my
I
dog.
want to be your kid, man. My mom was woo, you know, you were fighting. You're just a badass, man. And I'm not saying that because you're Amish. I just I think you're amazing, and I can't wait to help you more and more and get to know you more and more. So we're going to end it with a law question since you're a lawyer. If you could
Okay.
create one law, what would it be and why? A universal law that we all had to follow. What would it be and why?
Mm, that is a good question.
Get therapy so
Um,
you don't so you don't so you're self-aware.
yeah, that's, I mean, I would just definitely say that we have to keep our word to each other.
Oh my God, that's mine. There's so many things you said that are exactly what I would say. Mine is tell the truth. Yeah, everybody has to tell the truth. It'd be an easier
Yeah.
place. It's simple. Keeping your word to yourself. I don't negotiate with myself. And it's all about self-love. My first chapter of my book's called is self-awareness. So we're gonna
I
next
was
time I
gonna
see you,
say
I'll bring
and
you a
staying
book.
in integrity, like integrity. Without integrity, nothing works. So it would definitely be about integrity, something in integrity. I
Is
mean, with
there
loving each other, but it would be love, but with integrity. I mean, if we have integrity in keeping our word, like with in the Bible, it says in the at the beginning there was word, and if we all stuck with that, what would how much better of a place this would be.
I
And
started
the
off
word
as saying
and the word was God, right?
I started off saying you're beautiful inside and out. And we could go 3 hours. I have still so many more questions, but we only have an hour. This was great. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you feel compelled to share?
Get my book, make sure to go get it.
Heck
And
yeah.
I mean, the one thing I did want to go back to was that quote that you asked me about. I started to talk about, which was um, the you and you alone define your value.
Mm,
And I want to just talk about that for
please
really,
do.
really quickly.
Please do. No, we have
Um,
all the time in the world. I just am trying to be cognizant of yours because you've been interviewing all day. So go ahead.
yeah, because I actually had been practicing law. I want to talk about how I came to that quote. I had been practicing law for 8 years, and then I had gone to be a wealth advisor at Morgan Stanley for a couple of years. And then I went back to practicing law. And because a friend of mine was giving up her law practice, and it was like a small law practice, and she was basically dumping it in my lap. And I went back to my business coach at the time and I said, "Oh, everybody in Naples is going to think I'm such a flake." She was a lawyer, and then she was a wealth advisor, and then back to being a lawyer. And I said, "Everybody's going to think I'm such a flake." And Naples is a very affluent community, and I'm very judgy. And I was like, "Oh, I really hate to like show up as such a flake." And she said, "Well, people will think what you tell them to think." She said, "You can tell them to think that you're a flake, or you can tell them to think that you are the only lawyer in town that has a wealth background. So therefore, you are actually more qualified than any other family law attorney in town. Which story would you like to tell?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe I'll tell that story." And she said, "People will think what you tell them to think." And so I decided to tell that story. And within 2 years, I was representing billionaires and celebrities, including Arnold Schwarzenegger's goddaughter, and I got to travel with him all over Europe, and I was representing, all kinds of really, really amazing people. And people that were very clearly not going to be hiring somebody who was a flake. But had I shown up and like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I know I switched careers a lot," and if I had been like that, then that's what people would have seen. But I showed up in my power and I was like, I'm the only one that has a wealth background. So therefore I'm more powerful. So people will think what you tell them to think. And that's not just in negotiations, that's in any area of your life. And narcissists will respect that. They will see that too. But that same thing goes for anybody. For anybody. People will think what you tell them to think. Your aura, your presence shows up. So that's the lesson I want to leave people.
This last 10 minutes, you got to go back and re-listen to it. It was fire. There is the depth to you. It just, the book itself was fire. It came across, but the last 10 minutes of your knowledge, I thank you for that. And I love you for it. And I just want to reiterate, 90% of the winning begins before you walk in the room. Mindset is everything. Rebecca, thank you for putting this book out there. I'm going to send you so much love and positivity for it to do really, really well. Please kiss my friends that you're going to see, our friends, what you see. And you have my cell phone number. Reach out to me when the next time that you're in Naples so we can get cigars. I want to meet the husband. And I want to remind everybody that I do my best to respond to every comment. So if you want to see more of something or less of something on all social platforms, let me know. Each and every episode is sponsored by National Technology Management, the easiest and best IT company to do business with, delivering peace of mind with technology every day. Visit trustntm.com for more. Until next week, be harder than life. Rebecca, I love you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and subscribe to Harder Than Life, and let's take this to the next level. Get connected at the links below.